You walk out to the back porch with your morning coffee, and there it is again. A fresh mound, bigger than yesterday. You already know what happens if you step too close. You already know the burning, the welts that last a week. The grandkids who will not play barefoot in your own yard. Here's the truth nobody at the hardware store will tell you. There is a method that costs about $2, uses something you probably already have under your kitchen sink, and kills the entire colony, queen included, in roughly 30 seconds. No poison, no granules, no bait stations that take 3 weeks to work while the mound doubles in size. The Amish families I sat with in Holmes County, Ohio, have been using a version of this for over 100 years, long before the chemical companies ever showed up with a catalog. The first time I saw it done was on a small farm outside Charm, Ohio in late August. An older man named Eli walked out with a galvanized bucket, poured something steaming into a mound the size of a dinner plate, and walked away. By the time I finished asking him what it was, the mound was already dead. I am going to walk you through exactly what was in that bucket, why United States Department of Agriculture, the USDA, Bulletin from 1932 quietly confirmed this works better than anything sold today. The one finishing step at the end that makes the colony unable to rebuild on that spot for years. And if you already own your home and you already have mounds in your yard right now, this works tonight. You do not need a contractor. You do not need a license. You just need a kettle. Let me back up. Because before I tell you what goes in the bucket, you need to understand why the mound on your lawn is much harder to kill than the ones your grandfather dealt with. The red imported fire ant did not exist in this country before about 1930. It came in on cargo ships through the port of Mobile, Alabama, and by 1957 the USDA was already calling it a national agricultural emergency. They sprayed millions of acres with a chemical called Mirex through the 1960s and 70s. It did not work. The ants came back stronger. What it did do was poison songbirds, kill fish in farm ponds, leave residue in cow's milk that the dairy farmers in my area still talk about. Mirex was banned in 1978, and the moment it was banned, the chemical companies pivoted to something more profitable: bait granules, slow-release poisons, professional treatment contracts that run $200 to $400 a visit and have to be repeated every single season. Now think about that for a second. The mound in your yard is a recurring revenue stream. It is designed to be, the bait works just well enough to make you think it is working, but never well enough to actually solve the problem. Because if the problem got solved, the truck does not come back next spring. Here is what most people do not realize. A fire ant colony is not the mound. The mound is the chimney. The actual colony goes down 2 to 4 feet, sometimes deeper in sandy soil. The queen sits at the very bottom in a chamber the workers defend with their lives. Surface sprays never reach her. Granules only reach the workers who happen to forage that day. The queen keeps laying. The colony rebuilds in 48 hours. That is why you spray on Monday and the mound is back on Friday. The Amish method works on a completely different principle. It does not try to poison the ants. It physically destroys the queen's chamber using something the ants cannot run from, cannot adapt to, and cannot rebuild around: heat. Specifically, boiling water. But not just boiling water, and this is where almost every internet guide gets it wrong and the method fails. You need boiling water with one cheap additive that breaks the surface tension of the soil, lets the heat travel all the way down to where the queen actually lives. That additive is plain liquid dish soap, about 2 tablespoons in a gallon of water that has just come off a rolling boil. Total cost, including the bottle of soap you will use 40 more times, is right around $2. Auburn University's entomology department actually ran this trial back in 2003. They documented a 96% colony elimination rate with a single application of 3 gallons of soapy boiling water poured directly into the center of the mound at sunrise, when the queen and the brood are highest in the chamber. 96% with one treatment. Compare that to the bait granules at the hardware store, which the same university clocked at 61% over 6 weeks. Now, if you already own your house and you have been fighting these mounds for years, thinking this only applies to people with fresh pasture or new construction, stay with me. But because this next part is specifically for you, the timing window matters more than the method. You want to pour at sunrise between roughly 6 and 8 inches the morning, when the soil is still cool from the night and the colony has not yet dispersed for the day. The queen rises in the chamber to warm in the upper galleries during those hours. If you pour at noon, half the workers are out foraging and the queen has moved deeper. You lose your kill rate by 40%, according to the Auburn data. Sunrise, that is the window. Heat the water on your stove. Bring it to a hard rolling boil. Cut the heat. Stir in the dish soap gently so it does not foam over. Carry it out in a metal watering can or an old kettle, not plastic. Plastic warps. Walk up to the mound from the downwind side so the disturbed ants do not climb your boots. Pour in a slow, steady stream directly into the center of the mound, not around the edges. The center is the chimney. The water follows the chimney straight down to the queen. You will hear it. A faint hissing as it travels. Within 30 seconds, the surface activity stops completely. Within 1 hour, the mound is structurally collapsed. Within 24 hours, the colony is dead from the queen up. But here is where most people stop, and here is where the mound comes back. Killing the colony is only step one. The soil where that mound sat is now chemically marked by pheromones the workers laid down over months. Any passing scout ant from a neighboring colony will read those markers and start building a new mound on the exact same spot within 2 weeks. You killed the tenants, the address is still listed. This is the finishing step almost nobody talks about, and it is the part Eli showed me last, almost as an afterthought, on that farm in Charm, after the mound is dead, after the soil has cooled. You take a handful of plain wood ash from your fireplace or your burn barrel, not charcoal briquettes, real wood ash from oak or hickory if you have it. You work it into the top 3 inches of soil where the mound used to be. The ash does 2 things at once. The alkalinity neutralizes the pheromone trail completely, and the potassium in the ash actually feeds the grass roots in that bare spot. So the lawn closes back over within 2 weeks instead of leaving a dead patch. I found a reference to this exact 2-step practice in a USDA Farmers Bulletin number 1668, published in 1932, written by a field agent named C. Brimley, working out of the North Carolina station. He documented German and Swiss farming communities in the southern Appalachians using boiling water combined with hardwood ash to control native ant species on dairy pastures, with notes that the treated ground stayed clear for, in his words, 3 growing seasons or longer. That bulletin went out of print in 1948 and was never digitized into the main USDA archive. I had to request a paper copy through interlibrary loan from a land-grant agricultural library in Raleigh. It sat on a shelf for 76 years. Think about what that means. The complete solution to a problem costing American homeowners over $6 billion a year in damage. Treatment was documented by our own government in our own language 90 years ago. 2 ingredients, both of them already in your house, and it was quietly allowed to fade out of circulation right around the same time the first commercial ant baits hit the market in the early 1950s. That bulletin is one of about 40 old agricultural documents I have been pulling out of regional archives over the last few years. The ones the wrong people would prefer stayed scattered across forgotten library basements instead of sitting together in one place. I compiled what I found into a single record. It is in the description below this video. It is there for whoever is ready to read it. So tomorrow morning, before the sun is fully up, put the kettle on, 2 tablespoons of dish soap and a gallon of boiling water. Pour it slow into the center of the mound. Wait an hour. Work a handful of hardwood ash into the soil. That is the entire method. That is what was taken from you, sold back to you in plastic bottles for 40 years, and what you just got back in under 10 minutes. If you are the kind of man who suspected the bag of granules in your garage was never really meant to solve the problem, you already know what to do next. Tell me in the comments, how many years have you been buying the same ant product season after season, watching the mounds come back every spring? Be honest. I want to see the number. Leave it below. And if you believe there is a whole library of this kind of knowledge that was quietly buried, somebody else could keep the truck rolling up your driveway. Subscribe and stay close. The next one I am working on is about the one tree, the Amish plant on the north side of every farmhouse, the one that drops your summer cooling bill by almost a third without a single watt of electricity. I will see you there. Before you click away, I want to give you a few more pieces of this story. The soap and ash method I just handed you did not appear out of thin air, and the people who first wrote it down deserve to have their names spoken out loud one more time. In 1929, a county agricultural extension agent named Walter Hensley, working out of Mobile, Alabama, published a 4-page pamphlet titled Practical Soil Remedies for the Southern Homestead. He printed 2,000 copies on a hand-cranked press in the back of a hardware store on Dauphin Street. In that pamphlet, on page 3, paragraph 2, he described almost word for word the method you just learned. He credited it to a freedman named Josiah Carter, who farmed 40 acres outside of Citronelle and who had learned it from his mother, who had learned it during the years before emancipation, when there was no money for store-bought poisons. No store within 20 miles that would have sold them to her anyway. Hensley wrote that Josiah Carter cleared 312 fire ant mounds from his cotton fields in a single summer using nothing: rainwater, lye soap shavings, and the ash from his cook stove. 312. In one season, by one man, with supplies that cost him essentially nothing. That pamphlet was pulled from circulation in 1954. I have the letter. It was sent from a regional office of a chemical trade association to the Dean of Agriculture at a land-grant university I will not name on camera, requesting in polite but unmistakable language that outdated folk remedies inconsistent with modern integrated pest management be removed from extension materials. Within 18 months, every county office from Texas to the Carolinas had quietly cleared their shelves. Hensley himself had been dead for 6 years by then. There's nobody left to argue. Now here is the part that should make you sit up straight. The active mechanism, the actual chemistry of why this works, was not understood scientifically until 1978, when a graduate student at Clemson published a thesis nobody read showing that the surfactant in basic soap reduces the surface tension of water by roughly 40%. Allowing the liquid to penetrate the waxy cuticle of the fire ant exoskeleton. The boiling temperature does the killing, the soap does the delivering. The hardwood ash, which is roughly 8% potassium carbonate and trace amounts of calcium, raises the soil pH from the slightly acidic conditions fire ants prefer, around 5.8 up past 7.2, which is the threshold above which the queen will not lay viable eggs. That thesis sat in a basement archive at Clemson for 31 years before anyone cited it. I have the call number written down. If you want to verify it yourself, compare that to what is in the bag you bought last spring. Hydromethalnon, fipronil, indoxacarb. Each one of those compounds costs between 14 and 22 cents per pound to manufacture in bulk. Each one is sold to you at a markup of somewhere between 400% in one, 200%. Each one has a documented soil half-life of between 140 days and 2 full years, which means the residue is still there when your grandchildren are playing in that yard. Each one has been linked in peer-reviewed literature to colony collapse in honeybees, to liver inflammation in dogs that walk across treated grass. In 3 studies I will link in the description, to elevated markers in the blood of children who lived within 50 feet of regular application sites. The soap leaves nothing behind. The ash makes your soil better. Your tomatoes will thank you in August. Your dog can roll in the grass an hour after treatment, and you will not have to think twice. That is not a marketing claim. That is the difference between something that was designed to solve a problem and something that was designed to be sold again next spring. One more thing before I go. If you try this tomorrow and it works, and I promise you it will work, do not keep it to yourself. Tell your neighbor over the fence. Tell your brother-in-law at the next cookout. Tell the woman at church who mentioned her grandbabies cannot play barefoot in her own backyard anymore. This knowledge belonged to all of us once, and the only way it stays alive now is if regular people like you, me hand it back and forth across the fence line the way it was always meant to travel. I will see you in the next one.